My name's Liam. I'm 24, work as a freelance videographer, and rent a small one-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood outside of Seattle. My life is predictable. Coffee in the morning, editing gigs in the afternoon, mindless YouTube scrolling at night. I like it that way. No drama, no detours. I'd only recently moved into this building. A 3-story walk-up with weathered railings and flower pots on balconies, and I hadn't made many connections. I kept to myself, waved when I had to, smiled politely at neighbors I didn't really know. It was easier that way. So when I got a text one Wednesday morning from my neighbor Casey, a guy I chatted with once or twice, I didn't think much of it. "Hey man, could you do me a favor? A package I ordered got delivered to my mom's place next door instead of mine. I'm stuck at work. Think you could pick it up for me?" I hesitated. We weren't exactly close, but I didn't have any plans that afternoon, and I'd seen his mom around. Quiet, friendly, always polite. No big deal. "Sure. What apartment?" I texted back. 3A, her name's Rachel. Just tell her I sent you. So I went. No second thoughts. Just a simple favor. It was late afternoon when I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. The hallway was quiet, the sun bleeding soft gold light through the high windows. Apartment 3A had a little doormat with faded sunflowers and a ceramic wind chime that clinked lightly in the breeze from an open window. I knocked twice. A few seconds passed before I heard the faint shuffle of feet. Then the door opened slowly. She looked almost exactly as I remembered her from passing glances. Maybe early 40s, brunette, shoulder-length hair in soft waves, wearing a loose gray sweater and jeans. No makeup, no effort, but she didn't need it. "Hi," she said, her voice calm, a little surprised. "Hey, I'm Liam. I live next door. Casey asked me to pick up a package he said got delivered here by mistake." A brief pause. "Oh right, yes. The coffee grinder," she said, stepping aside. "Come in a second. It's on the counter." I hesitated just a beat, then stepped inside. The apartment was warm, inviting, cozy. A candle flickered softly on the side table, and mellow acoustic music played from a speaker in the corner. It smelled like vanilla and citrus. She picked up the box from the kitchen counter and handed it to me. "There you go." "Thanks," I said, taking it. But then, just as I turned to leave, she said it, so casually it caught me off guard. "Do you want to stay a while?" I stopped mid-step. There was no suggestion in her tone, no flirtation. It was soft, unassuming, almost lonely. She noticed my pause and added quickly, "You don't have to. I was just making tea. And, well, this apartment gets quiet sometimes." I looked at her, really looked, and in her eyes, I saw something unspoken. Not desperation, not sadness exactly. Just someone who hadn't had a real conversation in a while. So I set the package down gently on the side table. "Tea sounds good," I said. She smiled barely, but it was there, and walked to the kitchen. The kettle was already warm. She poured water into 2 mugs, then opened a cabinet full of loose-leaf blends and little jars with handwritten labels. Everything about her felt simple, intentional. "Chamomile okay?" she asked. "Perfect." We sat on the couch, each holding a mug. She curled one leg beneath her, hair falling gently over her shoulder. I took in the room, framed black and white photos, a half-finished puzzle on the side table, a plant with browning edges. "This place feels like it's lived in," I said. She chuckled. "I guess that's a nice way of saying it's cluttered." "No, I like it. There was a long pause, not awkward, just quiet. Then she said, "I've seen you come and go, usually with headphones on, always focused. I tend to keep to myself," I admitted. "Easier that way." She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that." The conversation drifted after that to small things. Weather, work. She said she worked remotely for a publishing company. Told me about her dog, Bella, who passed away last winter. About how Casey used to build forts in the living room with every blanket in the house. I listened, not just politely, really listened. There was a rhythm to the way she talked, like she didn't always get to share. But when she did, it came out smooth and careful, like she was unfolding something fragile. I didn't check the time until my phone buzzed. A message from Casey. "All good." I typed back quickly, "Yeah, got it." But I didn't get up. She noticed the vibration and said softly, "You probably have places to be." "Not really," I said. "This is nice." Another small smile. We didn't touch. We didn't flirt. But something gentle was blooming in the space between us. A quiet understanding. Eventually, I did stand. "Thank you for the tea," I said. "Thank you for staying." I picked up the package, walked to the door. Before I left, she said one more thing. "You're welcome anytime." I nodded. "I might take you up on that." She nodded back, but didn't close the door right away. And as I walked back to my place, just one door over, I realized something strange. I didn't feel like I'd just done a favor. I felt like I'd been seen. I didn't go back the next day, or the day after that, but I thought about it. A lot. I kept replaying the way she said it. "You're welcome anytime." It wasn't a throwaway line. Felt intentional, measured, like she meant it, like part of her hoped I would. And I wanted to, but something about it made me hesitate. She was older. She was my neighbor. More than that, she was Casey's mom. Not that we were close, but still. There were lines, expectations, assumptions. And yet, that evening with her had lingered in a way most things didn't. On Friday, it rained. One of those steady, quiet rains that taps against the windows and makes the whole world feel softer. I just finished editing a real estate video and decided to grab some fresh air. No umbrella, just a hoodie and headphones. I found myself walking past her door without meaning to, and then I stopped. I stared at the faded sunflowers on the mat. Then I knocked. The door opened slowly. Rachel stood there in a cream-colored cardigan, loose around her shoulders, and a pair of reading glasses perched atop her head. Her eyes widened with the softest flicker of surprise. Or maybe it was relief. "Hi," she said, stepping aside before I even spoke. "Hi," I echoed, stepping inside. The same scent welcomed me again. Citrus and something warmer, maybe vanilla or cardamom. Music played low in the background. Something instrumental. Soft piano. "I didn't mean to interrupt anything," I added quickly. "You're not. Just working through manuscript notes." She motioned toward a stack of papers on the table, half covered in red scribbles. "Want tea?" "Sure," I said. This time it wasn't strange. There was no pause, no awkwardness. Like we'd done this before. Like I was returning to a rhythm that had already begun. We talked for a while that evening. Nothing deep, not yet. She asked about my work. I asked about hers. I told her about my most recent client, a furniture store that wanted Instagram-style footage. She laughed. "I don't even know what that means," she said, leaning against the counter with her mug. "Neither did they. But they said make it pretty." So I did. I asked if she ever missed working in an office. She said she didn't, that she liked the quiet, like setting her own pace. But sometimes, she admitted, the silence got too heavy. Some days I forget how long it's been since I've heard another person laugh in this apartment. That hit me, not because it was dramatic, but because she said it so simply, like she wasn't looking for pity, just stating a fact. I could laugh more, I offered with a half smile. She glanced at me with the faintest smirk. Then you'll have to earn it. Time passed faster in her apartment. By the time I stood to leave, the sky outside had darkened into that deep blue just before night falls. She walked me to the door, hand resting lightly on the frame. I'm glad you came by. Me too, I said. She looked at me for a second, as if considering something, then reached behind her and pulled a small package from the side table. This is for Casey, she said. I forgot to give it to you last time. I took it, but we both knew that wasn't why I came. As I stepped out into the hallway, she added softly, Don't wait too long next time. I didn't promise anything. I just nodded. But inside, I knew I wouldn't. Over the next few weeks, I came by more often. Sometimes I'd text her in advance. Sometimes I wouldn't. It didn't matter. The door was always open. The lights always warm. The tea always hot. The first time I helped her move a shelf, our hands brushed. A brief moment that stayed with me for days. Another time, she asked me to help hang a picture, and I caught her watching me from across the room with a look I couldn't quite read. We never spoke about anything beyond the surface, but the energy between us was shifting. Gradually, quietly, like the way dusk creeps in without you noticing. One night, I brought her a small plant I'd picked up on a shoot, something low maintenance with bright green leaves. Just something for your window, I said. She smiled and placed it by the sink. You know, she said, turning toward me, you make this place feel different when you're here. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just said the truth. You make it feel different for me too. Her smile faded, just a little, into something more thoughtful. We stood there for a long moment saying nothing, just standing in that quiet kitchen, something unspoken pulsing between us. And then she stepped back. I should let you go, she said, voice soft. Right? I said. Yeah. But I didn't move. Neither did she. Until finally I exhaled and said, I'll see you soon. She nodded. I hope so. That night, I sat on my bed, lights off, thinking. This wasn't just company anymore. Wasn't just neighborly kindness. There was a current between us, gentle but growing, and we were both standing in it, pretending we didn't feel the pull. But we did. We both did. The next time I saw her, it was raining again. The forecast had promised clear skies, but somewhere around 7 p.m., the clouds rolled in and turned the evening into a quiet storm. I hadn't planned to visit her that night. I'd just finished a freelance job and was on my way home. But as I passed the landing near her apartment, I saw the soft light leaking out from under her door, and I stopped walking. I stood there for a second, hand on the stair railing, listening to the steady patter of rain against the windows. Then I turned and knocked. She opened the door in sweatpants and a loose navy t-shirt, hair pulled up, barefoot. Her expression shifted instantly, surprise, but not unwelcome. Hi, she said. Hey, I was walking by, saw the lights, didn't bring a package this time. She smiled lightly. That's okay. I don't need an excuse. She stepped back. I stepped in. Felt effortless now. Familiar. The kind of familiarity that settles into your bones before you even realize it's happening. We talked for a bit in the living room, the rain making soft rhythms against the windows, the low hum of music playing from a Bluetooth speaker tucked near her bookshelf. I noticed she'd moved the plant I gave her. It was in a nicer pot now, still by the window, but it looked like it belonged. She caught me looking and said, "It's doing better than I expected." I smiled. "Maybe it likes the view." She didn't answer, just looked at me for a moment, and not with that polite, neighborly expression she used to wear. It was something different now, something open, maybe a little unguarded. And then she stood up. "Would you mind helping me with something?" "Sure." She led me to the bedroom. I hesitated for a second, not because I felt anything inappropriate, but because something in the air changed when she opened that door. It was dim in there. A small amber lamp glowed from her nightstand, casting the room in warm shadows. She walked over to the dresser and picked up a small frame. "I can't get this nail in straight," she said, holding out a tiny hammer and a crooked hook in the wall. I laughed, gently. "You called me in for emergency wall duty?" She looked over her shoulder with the faintest smirk. "I trust your eye." I stepped past her, adjusted the hook, and in a few seconds it was done. When I turned around, she was closer than before, still holding the frame, still looking at me, and then softly, barely louder than the rain, she said, "You're different when you're here." I didn't speak. She continued, "It's like the whole apartment changes." I nodded slowly. "Feels the same for me." We stood there like that, in silence, in the middle of her room, something fragile and dangerous blooming in the stillness. Then she stepped forward. It was slow. She didn't rush, didn't say anything else. Her hand brushed my arm. My breath caught, and in the next second, we were standing so close I could smell the hint of cinnamon from her tea on her shirt. She looked up at me, eyes deep, searching. "I shouldn't," she whispered. I barely breathed. "I know." But neither of us moved. Her hand reached up and gently touched my face. My jaw lightly, like she was just checking to make sure I was real. And that was the moment. That single, suspended second before gravity did the rest. I leaned in. She didn't stop me. Our lips met, slow, warm, hesitant at first, like we were tasting the idea of something we both thought we shouldn't want. But it was real, and it was right there. Her hand slid behind my neck, fingers soft, tentative. Then sure, the kiss didn't last long. It didn't have to. We both pulled back at the same time, eyes still closed, breath still shared. Then she exhaled. "This is dangerous." "I know." She looked away. "But I don't want to pretend I didn't feel it." "Me neither." I took a step back. Let the air return. The space between us reappeared, but the weight of that moment stayed thick around us. "I should go," I said quietly. "Okay." I paused at the doorway, turning to look at her again. She was still holding the picture frame, but now she looked smaller somehow, like something inside her had opened and didn't know how to close again. "I didn't plan for that," I added. She nodded. "Neither did I." And that was it. I walked home in the rain, soaked but buzzing, my heart racing, my lips still tingling. We didn't talk for 3 days after that. Not because anything was broken, but because we both knew what had changed. And we didn't know how to name it yet. On the 4th day, she sent a message. "If you want to come over, the door's open." No emojis, no explanation, just that. I stared at it for a long time, and then I went. That night we didn't kiss. We didn't talk about it either. But the way she made the tea, the way she sat beside me on the couch, the way our legs touched and didn't move apart, it all said the same thing. Something had begun, and we weren't ready to stop it. We didn't call it anything. Not a relationship, not an affair, not even a mistake. It was just something that grew quietly between us. In looks held a little too long, in the way she handed me a mug with her fingers brushing mine, in how we said less but felt more. I came by 2-3 times a week, sometimes to help fix things that didn't really need fixing, sometimes with an excuse, and sometimes with none at all. She never asked questions. She never said, "What are we doing?" And neither did I, because the silence between us wasn't awkward. It was sacred, the kind that holds meaning more than words ever could. One night, she called while I was halfway through editing footage for a client. Her voice was quiet on the phone. "I don't want to be alone tonight." I didn't ask why. I just went. When I arrived, she was sitting on the floor by the couch, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, a half-finished glass of wine on the coffee table. I sat beside her. We didn't talk. Not at first. Eventually, she said, "I miss being touched." And not because someone wants something from me. Just touched. Gently. I looked at her, then reached over and took her hand. "I'm here," I said. That night, we didn't cross any new lines. But we didn't need to. The intimacy wasn't just physical anymore. It was emotional, vulnerable, and terrifying. But reality doesn't stay quiet forever. Casey texted me 2 weeks later. "My mom said she's been seeing more of you lately. You two getting close or what?" I stared at the screen, hands going cold. I typed back, "She's just been kind to me. That's all." He didn't reply for a while. Then, "Cool. Just checking." I sat with that feeling of almost being seen, almost being caught for hours. That night, I didn't go to her apartment. The next day, she didn't message. It started unraveling slowly. Not in dramatic scenes or slammed doors. Just less. Less time. Less messages. Less tea. Less touch. But never less feeling. One evening, I knocked. She opened the door with tired eyes and said, "I think we've gone too far, haven't we?" I didn't answer. She stepped aside. I walked in. We sat at the table. She folded her hands. "I care about you," she said. "I care about you too. But this can't be forever. I know. I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to lose you." Her voice cracked. "We already are." She didn't cry. Neither did I. But the room felt heavy with something grieving. The last time I saw her like that, it was raining again. Like the sky knew how to echo what we couldn't say out loud. I came over with no plan, no excuse, no words. She opened the door and didn't speak. We just stood there. Eventually, she stepped forward and hugged me. Not in a romantic way, not in a desperate way, but in a thank you kind of way. Please remember this kind of way. A we both know it's time kind of way. We stood there in silence for what felt like a whole season. Then she pulled back. "I'm going to be okay," she whispered. "I never doubted that," I said. I turned to leave, and she didn't stop me. Weeks passed. I stopped hearing from her. Didn't knock. Didn't text. Sometimes I passed her door and paused, wondering if I'd ever see that light on again and be welcomed in. Sometimes I did, but I never knocked, and she never opened it. One Sunday morning, I saw her outside for the first time in weeks, watering a plant on the balcony. She looked up, saw me across the street. Our eyes met. She gave a small wave. I waved back. That was all. Now, I sit in my apartment and think about how some of the most powerful things in life don't end with explosions. They end in whispers, in tea left unfinished, in hands that almost held on but chose to let go instead. And I still remember the day it began, how I walked up to her door expecting a simple favor, just to pick up a package, and how her voice, so quiet, so unexpected, changed everything. "Do you want to stay a while?" I stayed, not just in her apartment, but in something real. And I don't regret it, not for a second.